The genius behind it is actually my partner, Carol. She had some chronic health problems. She couldn't really work full time and she had a lot of medical expenses to pay off. So she kind of went into crafting. That was like her way to sort of escape that bad situation she was in. And then through crafting, she was like, hey, like maybe I can like bring this kind of joy that she's having to other people as well. And she decided to take her skills, put it into a little kit and just start selling it. And that's essentially how Claymoo started. One thing that Carol did was like a couple months before even launching Claymoo, she made the Claymoo page and then studied on TikTok, Instagram, the target demographic, the content that they like. And then she would make content that resonated with them and build the following through there. It's got like 50,000. And then she launched her products. She just started getting sales like from day one. We were doing like 2 to 3K per month. And then the next month, August, we went like 4K. In September, we doubled like 8K. And then we're like on our way to like 4.
We met briefly at a poker game, but like we didn't really meet each other. I just sat across from you. I lost some money. It was pretty fun. And then I was asking around everyone for like, okay, do you know any cool DTC founders to come on the pod? And then last minute you agree, which is super great. Yeah. And then, so the company you run is called Claymoo, right? Is that how you pronounce it?
Claymoo.
So what, like, can you explain to us, like, what is this? How does it work?
Yeah, okay. So essentially this is a DIY clay crafting kit. So it comes with all the materials you need. You can see over here, there's like clay in all the colors pre-mixed and instructions as well. So you craft the Claymoo creation and you make this little Claymoo thing that basically is like, feels like foam and it's light like foam and air dries by itself.
So then once you make it, like if I were to make Play-Doh, it's kind of like, I guess it's still hard after, but it's really heavy.
Yeah.
But then I guess the thing with clay is that you can get it to like a certain shape and it just stays like that as long as you don't put like water on it, I guess, or like it stays like this forever.
Yeah, exactly.
I can use this as like a room decor, like, you know.
Yeah. So it does stay like that pretty much forever unless you add some water to it, and then it'll like start like maybe losing shape a little bit because it's not waterproof. But there are ways to make it waterproof by like applying resin, or I can go on and on, but you know what I mean.
So like when I heard about Claymoo, the first thing that came to my mind was like, okay, this is really cute. It's really cool, but it's also like a business idea that I would have never thought about. So how did you come up with this idea, or like how did you start this business?
As you can tell, like I'm not really like an arts and a craft person. The one behind, not like the genius behind it, is actually my partner Carol. She basically was. It's not really my story because I didn't even join before she started. So she started this and I joined a little bit later. But basically she had some chronic health problems. She couldn't really work full time and she had a lot of medical expenses to pay off. So she kind of went into crafting. That was like her way to sort of escape like that bad situation she was in. And then through crafting, she was like, hey, like maybe I can like bring this kind of joy that she's having to other people as well. And she decided to take her skills, put it into a little kit and just start selling it. And that's essentially how Claymoo started. Yeah.
And then so your partner and co-founder is Carol, right?
Yeah.
And then so she started this because she was just solving her own problem. Like she was struggling with like a physical sickness and she was like, okay, like this is fun. Takes my mind off of things sort of vibes. Yeah.
So yeah, it was like, first of all, it takes her mind off of it. And second of all, like it gave her the flexibility to like not work on some days and she can work on other days. And at the same time, like bring her money.
Got it. So it sounds like part of this is like the pursuit of freedom of time and like not being tied down to a job that demands like 8 hours, every single day, no matter what. So if she's not feeling the best some days, she can afford to take a break. And this is kind of like what's enabling that, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's super cool. How did you like, I'm assuming like how did she stumble upon clay versus, I guess like there's Play-Doh, there's slime, there's like all the other arts and crafts, there's paper folding, like there's a million things. why clay specifically?
Why clay specifically? So I think first of all, like this sort of clay, it's very popular in Asia. She's from China, so like she's like very in with the culture there and everything. And she kind of was just like playing around with it, and it was like something that she was in. And the thing about this clay, it's like you don't need like an oven. It's completely air dry. The material is very soft. It's like slime like. So it's like very fun to play with just like with their hands. Like even now you could probably pick one up.
Okay. So like I don't need water to like make it soft. It's just like if I open the pack, it's already with Play-Doh, you gotta like warm it up. You gotta like I got a niece and nephew and they had a big Play-Doh phase.
I see.
Oh yeah, this feels kind of familiar. Like I feel like I've touched this type of clay before, but I don't quite remember when. But you're right, it is like very like soft and malleable. So she picked this because she was like, this is her favorite sort of material to do crafts with, I guess.
Yeah, and also at the time, like with arts and craft, like a lot of it needs like really intense concentration. Like I don't know if you know, like there's like there's crocheting, there's like those like little like diamond art like things that you gotta like really focus on. And having something like clay was just a lot easier to work with and just a lot more accessible because you don't really need a kiln, you don't need like an oven. You dry it
because you just have the raw materials. You can make anything you want.
You just make anything you want.
And it's also this feels less stressful to me because I've done rug tufting. This feels much more forgiving.
Like you can make whatever. Like I made like a few of these, and it's like it's like sure, like it doesn't look the best. But it's like it's pretty good. Like especially with the instructions.
What do you guys find are like the use cases? Is this like this is like a cupcake like bakery type situation? Shortcake. This is like a gingerbread man. I'm assuming it's like a Christmas ornament.
We have like a snowman too and like a Christmas tree. But
so like do people usually do it for decor? Like is that or it's just like I guess the fun is the making it. Whatever they do after it doesn't really matter. Right.
Cool. So right now, there's really 3 use cases. And it's funny that you say like day, night and everything, like going to these events. Because like that's like one of the very popular use cases. So like date nights, so a lot of crafty girls or like boyfriends would buy like a kit for them to make some Christmas ornaments together. And another thing is like a girls' night get together. So they come together, they make something, but you can't really come together and like make too many things because it can't take like 8 hours to complete the crochet thing.
So this takes how long to like say like this shortcake? Like how long would this take?
So if you're like me, probably between like 30 minutes to an hour.
Okay. Would you say you're like a beginner?
I'm not so much beginner.
Like intermediate?
Intermediate-ish. If you're advanced, like really crafty, like you can do like 30 minutes or even less. Carol, she can do one in like 15 minutes. Like she's like a beast.
And then like say it's my first time doing it, maybe like an hour and a little bit more kind of thing. Okay. And then what's the third use case? The first one was couples. Second was girls' night. Third one,
just like personal crafting. So just a typical like, just go by yourself and just craft something. That's the third use case.
Something I'm really curious about is like, so how like are you guys doing this full time right now? How did you guys meet? Right, like you said, you're not an arts and crafts person. Do you have a background in e-com? Is that how you guys collab? Like, what's the story there? You know?
Okay, so the story of how we met in high school. We talked a little bit, and then basically she moved to another high school, and because of that, like we were separated and we just couldn't really talk anymore. So we were friends. So we didn't talk for like 10 years. And then one day, at some point I started going to tech startups. So I was building companies. So like way on the left side, not even e-commerce, DTC related, writing software. I was like the tech guy.
I see. Well, you're a software engineer.
Yeah, software engineer.
And then did you work in like big tech / startups and then quit to do your own thing, or like how did that go?
I worked at a big company. I realized that this is not for me, and then I just built my own startup.
Gotcha. Are you still running it right now, or this is the main thing, or you're doing both?
I recently exited from that. So this is just like the thing I'm focusing on.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
were you happy with the exit?
It was my first exit. So I'm it was a small exit. It in like the 5 figures. It wasn't like anything big or life-changing amount of money, but it really just puts like a badge on my back, and it's just like pushes me forward, and like, okay, like I've started something from start to finish, and it's good to have that.
What did you build? Like, what was that software company?
It was a note-taking app.
Oh.
So it was a super niche note-taking app that basically, think of like Apple Notes, but you synced with like another app so that you could take notes faster into that particular app.
I see, because Apple Notes is like the default that people go to, but then it's like an unorganized mess. So you help people, okay, like I prefer Apple Notes, but it goes somewhere else. Does it sync to like what, like Evernote, Notion, or like does it matter, or like
it synced to a specific app called Obsidian? I'm not sure if you heard of it.
Yeah, I heard of it. It's like a Notion-esque.
It's so funny because when I first explained it to you like 3 years ago, I would say like Obsidian, and no one would know it. And then like nowadays, I'm just like Obsidian. You're like, oh yeah, I know what that is. I'm like, that's crazy.
I've heard of it. Yeah. Okay. Did Obsidian buy it out, or you're not allowed to say?
Obsidian didn't buy it out. Just like I put it on MicroAcquire or Acquire.com now, and then I was just letting it run on the side. I wasn't really doing anything with that.
Sure, that makes sense. That's super cool. Like I've never like had an exit. I'm not considering right now, but it's something like I have a couple friends going through it, and I'm like, it just seems like a really daunting process. I'm sure with everything, it's like once you do it for the first time, you're like, okay, I know I can do it. So then it's right. Like even if it's not a life-changing exit, like you said, it's nice to go through it and to like know what it's like.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Congrats. So then like you had that exit.
At the time, I was so this was actually before the exit. I was working in a tech startup.
I see.
And then we were like, my co-founder at the time and I were like, you know what, like let's grow organically. So I just like started making like a bunch of like TikToks and like posting on my Instagram story.
Nice.
It was terrible. Like the camera was probably like this close to my face. We were just like, let's just try to get as many users. And then we had like a competition between each other. Posted on my story, and then Carol was like, this sucks so much. I got to react to it. She was basically roasting me. And I was like, you know what? Like, I can't have any of this. Like, let's have lunch.
So you guys like reunited.
Yeah, we reunited. And then basically like one thing led to another, and then we just started dating.
So when you said partner earlier, I was like, is that like romantic? Is that business partner? It's funny. So I also run my business with my fiance, so I also say partner. Okay, so you guys reunited after 10 years, started dating, and then did this happen post dating, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I honestly, when I started dating, I wasn't like, I'm just going to steal the business. It was just like I was in tech startup. She was in e-commerce. She lives in Ajax. I live in Markham.
So then after dating is when you guys were like, okay, like this is a cool opportunity, right? Like she's very creative, artsy, DIY, and then you bring in more of like the business tech kind of growth mindset.
At the time, I was doing the tech startup, and then I went through a co-founder breakup. And then I was kind of like wandering around.
Yeah.
And then she was like, hey, like, she asked me, she was like, I'm having a lot of trouble. Like, I want to grow this and everything, but it's hard for me to like work on the product and like the growth side. I'm sure, you know, like there's just so many aspects to it.
Yeah.
And for me, it was actually like a hard jump to go from like, to really like take myself like, oh man, like I'm a guy that like writes software, to like, I'm like a DTC founder. Like there's a guy that messaged on me on LinkedIn, and just a random guy. And he was like, yo, selling clay crafting kits, ain't it? And he was just hating.
Broad daylight, just DMing you.
I know. And
what did you reply to him?
Yeah, I replied to him. I was like, why do you say that? Like, why do you say that? And he was just like, just SF is just so much better than Toronto, and like just tech. And honestly, I just put that to the side. And I'm like, this is like, I really believe in this. I believe in the product. I believe in Carol. I believe in myself. So it's
really interesting because like I think in your position, being a software engineer, you could easily get like a really high paying job in SF or even in Toronto. You kind of had like a lot of avenues, and I think it's like really admirable for you to pick a path where it's slightly less conventional per se in your position, but then it's something that like, okay, like this is what I want versus like what other people think I should do.
Exactly.
Right? Which is go to SF or do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then how long has it been since, like how long have you guys been running this together?
So she's been running it since like last year. She launched a Shopify store last year, October. So like 1 year ago.
So it's been 12 months literally, or 13 months.
And I joined in July. So maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, maybe.
Okay. That's super recent.
Super recent.
How has like, are you guys both doing this full time?
Both full time. Yeah.
Okay, that's super impressive. And then like, what are like, I'm assuming like when I looked at you guys' Instagram and TikTok, like you guys have a decent amount of viral videos. You guys have a good following. Like the website looks solid. I'm assuming sales are going good. Like how is that going overall?
From like a normal e-commerce perspective,
Yeah.
it's like, it's just growing,
Uh-huh.
but it's not like super big. So, just to put into like context for you guys, like I think right when I joined, we were doing like 2 to 3K per month. And then the next month, August, we went like 4K.
You guys doubled.
And then in September, we doubled like 8K.
Uh-huh.
And then we're like on our way to like maybe like 14, 15K.
Uh-huh.
But like at the same time, it's like, I'm thinking like, is this because of me or is it just like just the seasonal sort of thing and everything? But
is it, I mean, that's like you guys just doubled for like 3 months consecutively. That's huge. Congrats.
thank you.
But do you feel like it's hard to identify what's driving the growth? Is that kind of because you're like, oh, is it seasonal? Is it hard to identify what you're doing specifically for it to grow? Or like, I'm assuming a lot of it is organic, or like, I guess I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think it's not like super hard to identify. We're doing like at the beginning, I was like very set on doing organic. And I was like, you know what? Like we've got this organic channel. It's like worked for us in the past.
Yeah.
So like, let's just continue doing it.
Yeah.
But then after really getting into the scene, talking to other people, and just like learning more about like e-commerce in general.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, like if I wanted to grow faster, I have to like invest some time and money into paid, especially with like Q4 and everything.
Yeah.
So I took that leap and I was like, hey, like let's try paid. And what I learned actually, like there are advantages and disadvantages to organic and paid and everything.
Uh-huh.
But with our situation and our scale, I think the focus on like the paid is just like the stability of having like
reoccurring,
like because in the past actually Carol she found like a really good influencer. We made like a viral video and we got like a huge amount of sales in like March. But the thing is like that like huge spike, like we weren't ready for it. Well, I wasn't actually on the team yet, but she wasn't ready for it.
Because you got to
like
fulfill other
productions
and
wise and everything. But this way with ads and everything, we can sort of scale that up on our own terms.
And you plan to say, oh, next month we should order this much inventory because we're going to plan to do this much in ads. So you have this sort of like a scrappy forecasting system going, versus like just pray.
Like, I don't even know if I want to have a viral video because it's like we're barely keeping up with the production.
Is it like in terms of production, like you guys got to place orders in China and then it takes like what, like 2 months to come? Like what's difficult about keeping it up?
Honestly, like it's a little bit embarrassing to say this. But if you look at this packaging, every aspect of this packaging is put together in Canada. Like everything is like separate. Like even so these little bags, you got to pack them in.
You guys get this in bulk. You guys get the clay in bulk, and then everything else is packaged by.
Everything is packaged. Even the clay, we have to mix the colors. Sometimes.
So the raw, uncolored clay is what you get from China, and then everything else is here.
Pretty much, but some of the colors we get from China.
Yeah. But the color, but like you got to do the color mixing here. Okay, that's insane.
That's
holy
insane.
shit. So that must be like a ton of work. Right?
Yeah, a ton of work for our parents.
Are your parents retired or are they doing this on the weekend?
My dad is retired. My mom is retiring this year. But Carol's parents, like her parents, are like not retired. They're still working.
Gotcha.
They're just like
this is like a nights and weekends.
Nights and weekends sort of.
But I feel like for retired parents, like they're probably really happy to help out. Right? Like it's like fun and they feel like they're, you know what I mean? Like they're contributing.
Yeah. They are. And I'm actually a little bit scared sometimes too, because like they're old and it's just like, this is like very repetitive work, right? Yeah. So like I'm scared that like it'll like, workplace injuries sort of, and like I don't want any of that to happen. And I know that like if I push them, they will keep going. And I don't want to like push them too hard.
I see. So I'm assuming that's good motivation to eventually some sort of co-packer, eventually some sort of like alternative situation where, hey, if you guys have 10,000 orders come in next month and you go viral, you can fulfill it. And like you and your parents aren't stuck at the commercial kitchen.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I feel like that process. So one of my friends, they ran Remix Snacks. So they made, it's like chocolate and they infuse it with like dehydrated fruits and beans. And so they, for I think 2 or 3 years, basically went to a commercial kitchen on the weekends or like a weekday, and they would just rent it for like 8 hours, and they would just make batches of chocolate and then like cut it up themselves.
Oh, really?
And so then eventually they hired people to help them out to do it, but they were still there. And then eventually they found a co-packer, but it was like a pretty long process.
Yeah.
I feel like it's obviously possible. It's just, I'm assuming it's a really hard thing to do and figure out.
Yeah, and I think like one of the biggest challenges that I'm facing right now is that like transition to like, getting a space, like hiring someone to help out with that, and really like figuring out like I have a point where I have like the point where I'm at right now, and just like drawing the line between there is like, it's just like a little bit difficult right now.
Would you say like production is like the biggest bottleneck for you guys right now?
It's the switch between the two. So like this week just happens to be production. Next week might be ads, and then like just getting to the next one, and then we like go back, back to production
each week.
And then we just like flip flop between the two, and it's been like that for probably like the past like 2 or 3 months.
Would you say like the challenges or roadblocks for figuring out production is like you need to be at a certain level of volume before hiring makes sense, or like a co-packer makes sense? Is it just like getting to that point of volume, but then it's like it's a chicken and egg where I can't get to that volume if I got to do everything myself? Like what's the challenges here?
Yeah, just getting to that certain volume, and then having a better understanding of like the finances, the financial situation. I think that's what we're doing right now, and figuring out like, hey, does it make sense to like have is it profitable to hire someone? And like, are we gonna we're not gonna go into the hole for like making this decision. I think we want to be like profitable throughout. I think that's just like, we don't really want to go into like debt. But honestly, like the more I think about this, maybe that's we're okay with that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the thing with debt, I mean, I run an agency, so it's very cash flow positive. Like no agencies would raise money or take debt. But my friend who did like the food business, I think you're not quite in like, you're like in between, like, is this considered CPG? Like, I don't know. It's weird because it's not as sensitive as like food where you need to bulk produce, but it's like close to it, right? Like kind of somewhere in between. But in their case, like they were telling me that they were taking a lot of loans from the banks because they didn't want to raise money. They want to protect equity. So they would take out loans, and then it would be like their personal credit on the line. And then they would be like kind of, one of the founders is really anxious, and then one of the founders is very comfortable, just from like family backgrounds, right? Like you just have different levels of comfort with loans, and like feeling like with dad feeling like you owe money. I think it's like I feel like a lot of times these are emotional decisions.
Yeah.
Like the numbers and the logic sometimes checks out, but
maybe what I need is that just like little push to like, hey, it's going to be okay. And I go to a lot of these like founder events with other DTC founders, and I found those to be like super helpful, because like in those situations I tell them like, oh, here's my situation. And then they're like, man, like you got to increase your ad spend. You got to start scaling. Like, don't be afraid if you're spending like $50 or $100, like it makes sense to do that. Or like $200, $300, you just got to up it. And like that, like going to those events and like hearing other people tell me that, like gives me a lot more confidence to go and do that, because it's like,
it's people who has done it who can look back and be like, yeah, you got this.
And it honestly blows my mind. Like you're spending like $200 a day on just like ads. Like that's crazy. Like it could just like go down the sink. Like I'm like, holy, like,
because like $100 a day checks out at like 3K of monthly spend, so 200 would be like 6K. I mean, like it is, we can chat about this off the pod, but I think there's like really easy ways to like make sure your ad spend doesn't go to shit as you scale. So like it removes a lot of the anxiety, because I think you're anxious when you don't know.
Exactly.
Right? Like you're anxious and you're worried and scared when you don't know if that money is going to do something, but there's systems and frameworks to like check up on it in a way that, or structure in a way that it doesn't just like, oh, I spent like $500 yesterday and like I just burned all my money, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. So you guys been doing it essentially for a year. You've been on board for like last 3 to 4 months. What has been some of like, I don't know if you feel like maybe you already answered, but like, what are some like of the ugly / hardships that people don't really see? Because I think a really common situation is like, it's obviously very glorified these days to be an entrepreneur or a founder, and everybody wants to do the shit. But then the thing is like, you know, like we all know how hard it is behind the scenes, and a lot of stuff you don't get to share with people. So people just think, oh, like it must be so fun or it must be so cool doing it. Mm-hmm. And on one hand, it is. It's really fulfilling and tough. But like on the other hand, like there's so much shit that you just got to go through that most people don't know, right? So
I think one thing a lot of people don't realize is just like I think number one is like co-founder, like the relationship aspect of like co-founder. I think it's different, especially for on my end, where like I'm sure you understand. Like,
yeah, I feel like, what do you feel like are the pros and cons? For me, it's like the pros is that you're in it for life. I mean, we're engaged. Yeah. And so like there's this level of commitment that you don't ever think a co-founder breakup is even possible.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, we're like in it, right? Obviously the other pros, like you trust them with your life.
Yeah.
The con is that you need this sort of balance and like separation. I find that more space between us, it really helps. Like having independence and like, you know, us managing different parts of the business is really healthy.
Yeah.
What do you feel like?
Right now, it's like, it's hard to like balance like the business aspect and like add that like separation between like a personal and business aspect, because like the business aspect,
the business is your life,
kind of leaks into it, and it's like part of my life or our lives really. So like finding that balance and just finding that time to like kind of just unwind with each other. Like before we started working together, like we had a lot of that time together. Yeah. But like when we work together, it's just like, sure, we're spending like the whole day together, but like we're not really spending any time today. We're not together. We're not drilling. So yeah, that's just like figuring out that balance. And yeah, and honestly, like when I first started too, like it was hard to know when, like she didn't even know if I was going to be a right fit. I didn't know if I was going to be a right fit for this situation. Yeah. And given my scenario, like how
long have you guys been dating?
We've been dating for like a year now, roughly. Yeah.
But I feel like a year is not a short amount of time either, especially for like you're 26, right?
Yeah.
And so I think in your mid to late 20s, like a year of dating, you get to know a lot. Versus like when you were like 18, a year of dating is like you're just effing around. So yeah, so you guys both took a leap of faith, both ends, to just like give this a chance. Didn't know if it was the right fit, right?
Exactly.
Just like let's just do it and find out.
But yeah, it was really rough in the beginning. Like I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not like a DTC founder typically, so like I was just kind of like learning the ropes.
The pros that I see with a lot of engineers I know in my life, is that they are able to just pick up anything. Like kind of the ability, like, you know, like Navy SEALs, like they're known to just like, we can become experts in anything. And like it's like that type of energy. Yeah, I think engineers are just like I've seen a lot of engineers just like get out of their niche and just like do really well in anything. Yeah, right. So I'm assuming you like picked up stuff. Like it sounds like you're probably running the paid ads yourself. So like it's like picking things up, learning stuff. Like I feel like you're getting the groove of it. Yeah, it's getting a lot better.
Yeah, and she's like, now she's like, wow, like like I told her like, oh, I'm gonna be slow in the beginning, but like just trust me, like.
Shipping costs is one of the biggest line items for any D2C brand. So what if I told you can save up to 75% versus the national carrier? Well, the good news is you actually can. Stallion Express is Canada's #1 shipping service, and for a good reason. They are the most affordable way for Canadian D2C brands to ship and fulfill their packages to anywhere in the world. And it's super easy to use. It just takes 5 minutes to create a free account online, input your order, and they'll find the best postage rates across all of the carriers for you. Then you just print it and drop it off at one of of the many Stallion locations near you. They've already helped Canadian brands save over $100 million in shipping costs over the last 10 years. And for listeners of the Warehouse podcast, there's a special offer just for you if you're shipping over 500 orders a month and you're looking for a new and reliable 3PL. So Stallion's 3PL Fulfillment Center is offering $10,000 in shipping credit. Their 3PL has the best shipping prices from Canada to anywhere in the world guaranteed, a 99.99% picking accuracy, 24-hour turnaround from order to shipment, and finally, they operate 365 days a year. So just sign up with the link in the description and get $10,000 of shipping credit today. I feel like I want to go back to like your personal story a bit.
Yeah.
You went into big tech. Did you go to Waterloo for?
Yeah, I went to Waterloo.
Okay, so you did big tech. You just felt like it wasn't for you. What did you feel like, you know, in your journey in your life? Like, what really pushed you to like start your own thing? Like, why did you? Because like Carrie, your co-founder, did it for personal reasons, right? Like, I think it's really important to find your why, right? It's just like, okay, I wanted the freedom, I wanted the flexibility, I wanted something that like I happen to like. What was it for you that pushed you to do this?
Yeah, and I gave this actually a lot of thought, so I'm like really happy that you asked this question. It's a lot of it is aligned with the values of like who I am, and the couple of my values are like authenticity and personal growth. And I think like nowhere like in big corporate, like you barely can find like authenticity. That didn't really resonate with me, and I didn't really feel good in that sort of situation. And then the second thing was personal growth. It feels like whenever you work for a company, there's always like a ceiling with like how well you can do. And when you try to like go past that ceiling, like people start like pushing back towards you. I didn't really try to push back on that ceiling, to be honest. But like I kind of just like could feel the ceiling, and I was like, it just made me not really want to like improve myself like from a work perspective.
Yeah.
And then because of that, I just started like doing things on my own. I started like building my own app and everything. And then that kind of gave me the confidence. I was like, hey, like I can actually do something. Like I can actually get someone to like provide value in this world that's not like working for a job. Like some guy, like when I first started, it was Fleeting Notes at the time, like my note-taking app. And I got an email. It's like, yeah, like I used your app, and I like was able to like stay organized, and I got a promotion thanks to you. Like, thank you so much.
Oh.
And I just read that email, and I'm like, man, like I'm pumped. Like this is like, it just feels so good. There's just something different about it, and you can't really get that same sort of energy from like a workplace.
I feel you. I relate to that a lot. I was previously at spent 2 years at L'Oreal, then Turo. So I spent 4 years in corporate kind of experiencing that firsthand. And then it just felt like, I don't know if you relate to this, like, you wanted to be good at your craft, almost like an athlete. Like when you say that ceiling of like just being really good or something, then you always feel limited because, if you want to do this thing, this initiative doesn't, like that director doesn't like that, or whatever it is. There's some random BS reasons. But no one really ultimately cares about just purely performing. But then when you do your own thing, like that's all you care about, which is like, is the product good? Is the customer happy? Which is the only thing that really matters.
Exactly.
Not the other BS stuff, right?
And I feel like that's like a really big problem for like companies that are like scaling to that degree. It's like the founders like, hey, like I really want to kind of have that sort of same like mentality, but it's like really hard to kind of maintain that as you go into like a bigger and bigger company, because it kind of gets diluted through people.
Like you live long enough to become the villain. Yeah, I actually, it's funny because in my content about talking about me doing my business, like there's some people leaving those comments like, oh, you quit a job, but now you have like a team of like you're just doing the same thing. And I think I really believe it's like, it's not what you do, but it's how you do it sort of thing. So like anybody can build 100% company, right? But like it's how you do it. Like one company staff is really happy and fulfilled, and the other it's just like super burnt out and like stressed. So it's really about how you do, not what you do. So I think like a label of, oh, you're corporate, oh, you have, like those labels mean nothing. Right? There's so much nuance behind it.
Exactly.
So I don't think, like we shouldn't feel guilty about building a team. Like if we build it the right way, we're super proud. Like when I talk to my team members and they tell me, oh, this is like the best job they've ever had, or like, oh, I'm really happy and like feel stable here. I'm like, oh, that's all like that's really fulfilling for me.
Yeah, I want to work for you, man.
That's really cool. What do you feel like? So now that you guys are like, you've been doing this for 3 or 4 months, what are like, you know, things that obviously this podcast is going to air. There's some people watching it in the D2C space. What are things that you feel like you need help with that you can just like talk about in general? So like if people are watching and they're like, oh, like I'm an expert in email, I'm an expert in whatever, I'm an expert in co-packing facilities, they can just reach out. So like, what is like, this is like a PSA of like, what's on your mind? What would you need help with these days?
These days, I would probably start like looking into expanding outside of like maybe getting a warehouse and like finding like a space and like figuring out
sort of situation?
Yeah, maybe 3PL.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that would be like the right scenario considering like how like we're doing a lot of the manual packing labor. We may as well do the fulfillment as well.
I see.
And if we're gonna scale to a point where we like I want to scale in the future, just like finding that next step, like like finding a warehouse. It's just something that's been on the top of my mind. I think right now things are just changing so much. Like there's like I'm flip-flopping between like the 3PL, but then I know at some point it's like we can't just work in our parents' basement for the rest of our lives. We gotta like move out.
I feel like a lot of times there's good force functions in the sense of like, hey, if I have a vacation coming up and if I don't hire and systemize this thing, I know I'm gonna be fucked.
Yeah.
Right. Or like, oh, my parents are getting old and they need like, so they have 2 years left and I need to get this done before then. Or like, oh, like knock on wood, like, I don't know, we have a baby coming. So it's like, oh my God, I have to make this business run at 30 hours a week instead of 50 because I need time to take care of my kids. So I think oftentimes there's force functions that just happens to you in life that, because otherwise you have infinite time to find this warehouse or infinite time to figure out 3PL. But if you have a force function, and sometimes you can create it for yourself too. You can artificially be like, okay, I'm just going to book myself this trip and like I have to figure my shit out before then. So these force functions I think are just like really good deadlines because otherwise like you have too much freedom as a founder. You have no deadline. Yeah. Or you can always just like, let's just push it next month or next week. That's like true. When is like, if you don't have a deadline, when is it going to get done? Yeah. So I think that's like something interesting to play around with. It's like artificially creating pressure to get stuff done. Okay. So warehouse is a big thing. Anything else that you just need help with in general?
I think at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to like the growth aspect of it. And then there's many avenues towards that, like emails, ads, like organic.
Yeah, the whole stack.
It's hard to say. Like it could be any of these channels like would be help, but maybe like ads would be a big one that I might need help with. Especially like creating those creatives and just understanding that. Like right now I'm doing like manually myself. Like scaling that might be like the biggest problem like after I figure out like other aspects.
That makes sense. Now that you've been in the D2C space for like, you know, quarter of a year, what are some like, I'm assuming like once you're a founder, you have this thing happen where you just constantly think of like business ideas and you're like, oh, that's a cool product. Oh, that's a cool thing. Any new business ideas that, you know, you can't commit to right now, but that you want to just like talk about?
Analytics in Shopify, right? Like a lot of the analytics solution, they're really expensive and it's like hard to like customize it for like specific use cases. For example, if you want to create like a graph for like a specific situation, it's like hard to do that.
It's all like kind of default.
Like triple whale. I haven't used like triple whale too much, but from what I've seen, it's like that. But when I was working as a tech founder, there was like an analytics solution that I used that was like super customizable. It was very affordable. I was thinking like, hey, if we could get like that sort of level of analytics and kind of integrate that with Shopify, just like that middle layer, having like a middle person just like doing that sort of integration, and you can funnel like all the data from Shopify into this analytics platform really easily.
It's cool because you have 1 foot in both worlds. Yeah, exactly. And like it's like if anyone were to build it, it would be you, right? Other people wouldn't. Like you would just take whatever tools you have or apps you have on Shopify, and you're like, oh, I'm pretty content with this. This is cool. Yeah. You come in from like tech, and you're like, oh, this is kind of garbage, or like this could be better. Yeah, like, we had better tools in tech. Yeah, that's what, anything else that you're like tinkering or just thinking about?
I had a bunch before. But I think they were dumb ideas.
Say like right now, pretend for a second that you guys know what this product is, right? You still have the product with you, but just imagine that like all of your customers are on your website. Everything is gone. You start over from scratch. You have $1,000, but you have like all the materials, right? So say you already have your goods that you can ship out. What would you guys do to get back to where you are if you were to just start from scratch? Like, what are the things that you feel like are the biggest priority that just takes you back to this level of like scale and revenue?
What I would do, depending on how much stock I have, there's like a couple avenues. The biggest thing for me, I would say, is like knowing the angles that resonate with people, whether that be like the girls, like I said, the girls' night, the date night, ideas.
It's like figuring out the pain point and like the benefit and the use case, like that combination, and for who it is. Did it take you guys like a long time to figure it out? Like over time, you guys figured out, oh, there's 3, whereas in the beginning you thought maybe there's only 1 or 2.
Yeah, at the beginning it was more so like, hey, like we're just gonna make this thing to like craft, like make it so people get craft it. But then we found that people started like using it together. They bought like multiple to use it together.
Yeah,
and like we always knew that was a thing, but we just never knew like how big of a portion of that was like of our customers that would use our product.
So if you were to start from scratch, like what are ways to figure that out faster? Like how would you go about, what are the steps you would do to like just figure that out?
Assuming I didn't know, I would say the fastest way would probably be to just like run ads. Like let's say if I have $1,000, I can run ads. I can create like a fake landing page, have like maybe like an email form or some sort of thing to measure conversion. Whether it could even be like getting someone to pay and being like, oh, this is a pre-order or whatever.
Yeah.
But running ads with like all the different angles and then just seeing like which one like resonates the most, like which one has like the highest conversion rate from that.
I see.
And I'm not sure if that's possible. Maybe it's possible with $1,000 budget. I would probably do that and just figure out the angle as fast as possible, because what I realized too is like once you get that angle, it just like things just start like going a lot more smoothly, and just figuring that out is the hardest part.
Yeah, because like essentially people don't buy this because it's a cute DIY click it. People are buying a date night activity.
Exactly.
That's what they're buying. And it happens to be in the form of a DIY click it.
Exactly.
Right? But they're buying that experience, or they're buying, like the experience of whatever it is that's solving their problem or like that they need in their life.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, that's really cool. That's a really, like, I think a really solid answer. And I think like a lot of founders, I was expecting more like, let's just post on TikTok and go viral. But you took it more of like, hey, like if I didn't know who my customers are, how would I go about figuring it out? And I think that's like a really smart way to do it. I think it's also like a lot of founders say they want to do, if they have a product idea, they technically don't need the physical product in stock before validating if there's a market for it. They could just, like you said, fake landing page, pre-order, and you could just refund them after. But just run some ads and see, like, do people even click? Do people even pre-order and buy it?
Exactly.
Right? You don't even need the stock, technically.
Yeah. And actually on the flip side here, like I know like a lot of people, especially if you asked me like 2 or like 3 months ago, like I wouldn't really be comfortable doing like ads and like tossing $1,000 down the drain. And I'm sure like a lot of people aren't comfortable with doing that as well.
Yeah.
And one thing that Carol did, and I think what she did really well, was like a couple months before even launching Claymoo, she made the Claymoo page and then studied on TikTok, Instagram, like the target demographic, the content that they like. And then she would make content that resonated with them and build the following through there.
So she researched like, what do DIY arts, crafts, clay people like?
Yeah.
And then look at the content that does well, and then like studying that and like making her version of it, right?
Exactly. And videos. So she would make, I guess like a couple of examples here is like she would make like a DIY like flower lamp, a DIY mirror. And then she kind of built a following. She got like probably like 50,000 followers. And then she launched her product with a page with like 50,000 followers with a bunch of people doing that.
Yeah.
And she's just started getting sales like from day one.
Because so many people wait till the product is live before they do any sort of organic social or any sort of thing. So good to do it prior. What do you feel like maybe Carol can answer this better, but like so many people try to make viral videos and it's really difficult to grow a following. So what do you feel like was kind of some tips that you guys figured out to like make really good content?
Yeah, so I've been in this a little bit. I think the biggest misconception is like you just need to do a lot of research into like viral videos and just understanding the different aspects of like why a viral video goes viral. And then once you have that like formula, like, and you understand like, hey, like people like this because, for example, it's like, it's something that they want to share with like their friends. And it's like, why do they want to share it with their friends? And then understanding that aspect and doing the research of understanding why the viral videos for your particular niche, I think that's like a very important aspect, will allow you to make those videos that like are similar to that. You kind of just like copy, add your own twist to it.
That makes sense. In terms of research, are you literally just going on TikTok search and being like DIY clay or whatever it is, and you look at, okay, what's by views, like what's doing the best?
What I've done is like we have our company page, and like the algorithm is like
all DIY.
It's all like DIY stuff. We only like and should save like all the DIY stuff. So it recommends us like all the good stuff. Yeah, just like saving those and then like rewatching it. Yeah, just understanding like what aspects of going viral.
Are you taking the viral videos and using that same video or parts of it or the hook for your ads, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
So cool. I think one thing I do too when I create organic content, we have like a video editor. I tell her like, here's like the content that we want it to look like, and like here are a bunch of clips. Like it works pretty well. Like sometimes it's hit or miss. It's a lot better than just I think eventually maybe like finding like something that hits for yourself and then just like expanding off of that.
How did you find your video editor? I think that's like a lot of founders are like, oh, like I need to edit myself in the beginning, and then they get pretty burnt out because it takes a lot of time. Yeah, as you guys go about it.
What we did was we just we're doing it ourselves. And then we started working with a bunch of influencers that wanted us to want to feature our product. And then we just asked the influencers like, hey, like, do you want to help us like edit some videos? And we've seen that they can create good content. They've already created content in the past. They like our product a lot, so they have like a stake in the game.
Yeah.
And then it worked out well for us.
So you hired one of the influencers to be your editor.
Exactly. Yeah.
Part-time, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Part-time.
That's super cool. That's really smart because they're like, oh, they're good at it. They like the product. They used it. Now they're working with you guys.
Exactly.
Cool. Are there like huge, like I think in every space, like you have MKHD in tech, right? Is there the MKHD of DIY arts and crafts?
It's very spread out. There's a lot of people in the DIY space that are really big. I wouldn't say there's like a king or queen for DIY.
Any topic in particular you feel like people just don't talk about that you wish was talked about more? So this could be something like therapy, or it could be something like, I don't know, personal finances, or just like, are there questions that you wish that people asked you more, kind of thing?
I think a lot of people don't really talk about their values. And this goes back to like your previous question with like when you asked like why like I decided to go in. But then the next thing like beneath that, it's like, what do you value? What like pushes you forward? And I think that doesn't get talked about enough, because like understanding like what you value really shapes like what you do and what makes you happy. And a lot of people like want to get into entrepreneurship, but it's more so like they kind of want to get into it, but their values don't really align with entrepreneurship. It just looks shiny, it looks fun. And having a good understanding of your values first, like for example, if like you care about like financial stability, it might not be aligned with entrepreneurship, and like that's okay.
Yeah. How did you? I think some people listening to this, I mean, I resonate with that a lot. It's just like, it's basically figuring out like, what do you really care about and what life you want, and then you could just like go in that direction, right? Yeah. And then if entrepreneurship is on the way, like great. If it's not, that's fine. How did you go about figuring out what is it that you want in life / these values, or what do you care about? Like
a lot of it is like journaling, self-reflection. But there's like a really good exercise that you could do. I forgot what website. It's something like values, where there's just like maybe like 32 values, and you just like rank them one over the other, and then choose like, oh, which one do you value more, like authenticity or like financial stability, and you just go like left.
Oh,
right,
there's like
left, right,
a
left, right.
Myers-Briggs, but for values.
Exactly.
It's like, what would you do? And right, and it gives you the same questions like multiple times. You have to keep ranking.
Yeah, you got to keep ranking them, and then eventually you be like, okay, these are your top values. And there's also another exercise I did with like one of my friends. He was like basically doing like sports psychiatry, and I was like his client. And he got me to do like a values exercise where like I grouped a bunch of values together, and then I chose like the top 3 groups, and then I did another grouping. And eventually it kind of led to like 3 things that I was like, this is what I value. It's like going through that exercise of doing a lot of reflection. I think it was very helpful.
That's really cool. I never heard of a test like that. I actually want to.
You should do it, man.
I hope it becomes viral, because everyone's like, oh, are you ENTJ, ENT, like, right? Imagine if like that values test was popularized. I think that's like a much more meaningful conversation than like,
Exactly.
are you introverted? Say if you won like the lottery tomorrow,
Okay.
and you spend like 6 months on a cruise and vacationing, and you're bored. So you're done like all the typical stuff of like, oh, I'm gonna go travel the world. Like, you're done with that, you're bored. What do you think you'll do with your life?
I really like teaching and like helping people. So I do think I will go into that sort of role. I think just like the general theme of like helping people learn more about something,
Just feels good.
it feels good. It could be the value. I think it might be the values thing too, like helping more people understand their values in some sort of maybe scalable way.
What do you do for fun? Like, what is it? I mean, obviously the business is all consuming.
Yeah.
I've had phases in my life where I've done nothing for fun. Like, fun is like the show that I watch during dinner. That's what fun looks like.
Yeah.
Right. But like, what do you enjoy?
Okay. And honestly, like when you say that, I think back, I'm like, hey, like I'm starting to look like that right now, like where the fun is. For now, what I do is I play ultimate frisbee. So I used to play competitively for a little bit for like the past 6 years. And
How competitive?
like nationals. I went to nationals.
Oh shit!
Like,
That's so like were you representing Canada?
no, I was competing to be the best in Canada.
To be the best in Canada.
Exactly.
Nice.
And
And then you go through a frisbee like across this whole warehouse.
maybe. I'm more of the running.
Did you start? Oh, do you run too?
In frisbee? I like catch the frisbee. I don't throw as much.
Gotcha. That's your role. It's like you're like I guess a receiver.
Yeah, receiver.
Okay.
Yeah, you played that, right?
No. I mean, it's the same term as football. I'm assuming you've stopped recently, or you're.
Yeah, I've tapered down. I don't play competitive anymore. I just kind of play in leagues like once or twice a week. Yeah, apart from that, I sometimes do rock climbing, and I
Very tech bro of you. Yeah.
and I play like some video games with some friends, but like not as much anymore.
What do you play?
So I have a good friend of mine. We just like play Hearthstone together. Like we like go on a screen and we're just like talking. We're like we just play like a card game together.
Dude, I hit Legend like last year.
We only play Arena
Oh, what? Wait, why?
because like
It's just
we
more
don't want to
fun?
keep up with the meta.
Yeah,
we just want to play
The
like
meta is a little bit toxic. I feel you. But yeah, Arena's really fun. I still randomly get the itch to like download Hearthstone and play some games here and there.
yeah.
I'm a very like I get very addicted to video games, so it's like I get like a dose and I like just like keep it away from me.
It sounds like you're good at it though. Like
Now my friend helped. He got Legend multiple times and he like helped me with the climb. But he would always flex his Legend card back on me, so I had to get it. Okay, so Hearthstone is you. We should play sometime. I'm down.
yeah.
What are other video games?
Honestly, we kind of just picked some like co-op game and we're just like let's just play this together. And we played like It Takes Two the other time.
Yeah.
It was pretty
I
fun.
tried to play that with my fiance. It was fun.
Yeah.
But then like halfway through, she was like, I'm kind of bored. Okay, awesome. I think this is pretty much it. Like, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah. Thanks for having me,
It's
man.
very last minute, and then thanks for driving out to Saga.
Yeah.
This is like, it was really cool just like getting to know your story. Like these actually look super awesome. Like I'm definitely gonna get some for date night. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Sick.
Appreciate it.
Man.
Awesome.